What was your "Is this Bish serious?" moment? Viewer edition.
Hey you. B? You? Are you serious? But boy, some of these stories, they're pretty serious, I guess, or not. I don't know how to interpret this. We're gonna read them now, and I guess we'll find out, but I'm curious to see what you folks have had to say. Also, I realize I'm wearing just a plain t-shirt now. It turns out most of my summer shirts that I wear, a lot of them have green, and if you can't tell, there might be a green screen behind me. But I wanted to wear this today, but look, it's got like green. I bet this looks terrible. Sorry, editor. Let's do stories. Story 1. A woman I knew had a horse therapist lady who would translate for her what her horse says in order to help keep the horse happy. This went both ways. When the woman had trouble in her life, the horse therapist would ask the horse to give advice and then translate the answer to her. This included relationship advice and problems in her marriage. Eventually, the horse told her to get a divorce. Imagine having paid for your wife's horse therapist so that shrewd could talk your wife into leaving you by telling her horse told her to, and she actually does it. Good riddance. I thought this is just going to be like, a horse whisperer or something, someone who's like helps with animals. I did not expect it to go quite this far. Ooh, we're really starting this video off hitting the pavement running, huh? Oh boy. Story 2. I used to follow this woman on Instagram. She wasn't really an online friend, but we both liked to draw and had some fandoms in common, so we had a few conversations and sometimes replied to each other's stories, etc. She started posting stuff about how some people in a Discord chat she was in were bullying her. Okay, sad, but it happens. But then she started posting about other groups bullying her. Got to the point where at least once a week she had posts about someone doing and saying horrible things to her. It didn't take me long to realize what was going on, that she was either exaggerating or making the whole thing up. Then one time we were talking and things got heated. She started cursing me, saying horrible things, and clearly not open to having conversations or hear me out. I blocked her because I was tired of her BS, and immediately got multiple DMs from people accusing me of bullying her and being a horrible person who immediately blocked her after she disagreed with me and didn't let her explain herself. The best part is, the messages included screenshots that she apparently put up in her story of our conversation, and the screenshots clearly showed there was conversation and she was being a bish. I'm actually not sure if it was people who actually believed her and went after me like her personal attack dogs, or fictional accounts she created just to harass me, and I'm not sure which is worse. If there's one thing that the internet is good at, it is creating hate mobs. And a lot of the time, it can be kind of justified. People do some pretty atrocious crap that gets revealed, and people kind of go after them. And I think there are lines that should not be crossed, but there are certainly times where I'm like, yeah, no, this is deserved. But there are a lot of times where, man, that mob gets going, they get their pitchforks and torches up, and I can't help but look and be like, Do we know all the information here? What are we going off of? Because this seems a little extreme. And, this feels like it could be one of those cases. Sorry that you had to go through that.
Story 3. Story 12 really resonates with me. I had a neighbor do this to me twice, but she left her newborn on my doorstep because I was training to become a teacher at the time. She said she was bored of being a mother and didn't leave anything for the kid. I caught her walking away the second time and was on the phone with CPS and made it abundantly clear. I still made the call for child abandonment. Her husband was kicked out of the military, so I never saw them again. Story 4. I don't know why this is my most memorable Are You Serious moment. It was during college when we were doing analyst of the Grapes of Wrath novel, particularly the characters themselves. For anyone who knows the story, there's a character called Connie Rivers who's married to the protagonist's sister who straight up abandons her while she's pregnant because he has an impractical, and a romanticized view of how city life during the Great Depression is like. For some reason, one of my classmates was defending his actions, arguing that Connie was going to college and that he'll be back for his abandoned wife once he gets a job. We all looked at him like he was joking, but it dawned on us that he wasn't, and that he truly thought this, even though we explained to him how unlikely and unrealistic that thinking was. He just kept insisting that this was Connie's master plan. To say he failed that portion of the class would be an understatement, since even the professor couldn't believe she had witnessed, since no one had ever defended Connie Rivers before in her experience. I guess Steinbeck's realist characterization of a selfish, immature dreamer of a young man was more on spot than most of us realized. Story 5. When I was out with my family at a pumpkin patch in fall, which is a tradition for us, my mom paid for an apple cider for my cousin and gave it to her, saying something to her like, "Here's your apple cider." My cousin stared at the drink for a few seconds and dead butt said, "Wait, is apple cider made from apples?" Story 6. When I was in first grade, a kid asked me to a dance. His name was Steven, and this sounds bad, but I laughed at him. Let me explain. For one thing, I didn't know the dance existed, so I thought he was playing a prank on me. To further reinforce my theory, I had always considered myself ugly and thought that no one would ever love me. I realized I was being overdramatic at the time. As soon as I realized this, I tried to apologize, but he ran away in tears. Note, I literally said, "Wait, you're serious?" Unfortunately, he was with his older sister at the time, and it was the end of the school day. He left for good that day. I still feel incredibly guilty 7 years later. Steven, if you're reading this, I'm so sorry and wish you luck in your future endeavors. I'm sure we both had an "Are you serious?" moment. I know I did. I truly apologize. Thank you for reading.
The thing that's getting me the most in this, and maybe it's just showing how absolutely out of touch I am, but there were dances for first graders where you're asking each other to dances. It's first grade. I don't remember anything like that. Honestly, throughout grade school, I don't think that I knew about school dances as a concept until 7th grade. Well, Steven, chill out. But good luck on your future endeavors, as the OP said.
Story 7. I went to a children's hospital to treat a pituitary tumor with complications when I was in my late teens. I was put into a shared room during my stay there. The other patient was a young man with a gimpy leg, accompanied by his nightmare of a mother. So one morning I got back from physical therapy and went to my room. The other boy wasn't there, so I assumed I was alone. A psychologist drops by and I speak with her. We go over my medical history and intimate details about my traumatic childhood. Bare the end of the conversation, the boy's mother jumps out of the corner and starts berating us both for letting her hide and listen in on our very private conversation. I later learned that the reason her son and 2 other children were disabled was because she had them with her brother. She was truly insane. Story 8. I had a client just like that last story. I'm in pest control too. I called and told the lady I would be there between 2:45 and 3 p.m. I arrived at 2:50 p.m. and was yelled at for not giving an exact time I'd arrive. Immediately fired her as a customer. We then went to repo all our equipment. She threatened to call the law. We called them for her, and they helped us remove her termite bait stations.
Any industry where you have to set appointments with people, they want the time to be as specific as possible, but it completely ignores the fact that there are other customers that need to be helped. And the thing I would always remind customers of is it's like, if you want, a technician, a pest control guy, whatever, to be absolutely on time, as specific as possible, would you be okay with them leaving before the job is done to get to the next customer on time? Normally, they're going to say no, but they don't understand. Like, even when you tell them that, they do not get why you can't be to their house at exactly 3 o'clock and not, between 2 and 4. And I know sometimes these places, they have a window of like, we'll be there between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. and that's some BS. But customers are never happy, at least some of them.
Story 9. My husband's sister, who's 5 years older than him and 10 years older than me, threw a tantrum because a door was left open and she claimed I did it and I was a liar when I said I didn't. She caused a horrible argument, screaming and cussing about me, just absolutely losing her mind. She would also regularly randomly bring it up again when she threw fits about other things and wanted to start fights. I don't speak to her, but I guarantee you, even though it's been 10 years since that incident, she's probably still bringing it up, ranting about it to this day. Story 10. That one story of the, I presume, woman's mother hits way too close to home for me. Whenever my sister and I, go to see family with our dad, he always, without fail, manages to single me out for crap my sister's also doing. He'd say stuff like, get off your phone and spend time with your family, when my sister and my cousin, who's sitting on the couch next to me, are also on their phones. Then I'd see my dad on his phone too. Story 11. I have a lot of these is this be serious moments, but the best one was when me and my ex-boyfriend were helping his aunt carrying groceries. Everything was going fine until the bag my ex was carrying ripped from the bottom and everything inside fell out. Ex proceeds to get angry at me because I didn't open the door fast enough. Like, B, I had 3 bags in both my hands. You think I'm an octopus or something? Needless to say, I'm happy he's an ex now. Story 12. I'm late to this video, but I have a stupid story to tell. I worked at this fast food restaurant called Slim Chickens for a while. I made bank off it for a while for a high school job, but I quit because they couldn't pay me anymore like they used to as they lost too much money. I was experienced enough to train a new coworker despite not being old enough to be a manager. I was training her back in window 1, taking cash and taking orders. We had this woman come up the first lane and I noticed my coworker was still nervous to get on the mic, so I took the order myself. Problem, I couldn't hear her over the screams of her kids in the back. We don't sell chicken nuggets or cheeseburgers, but that's all these kids were screaming about. I was like, what the F? Laughed my butt off. So finally, after a while of confused silence, she pulls away and goes to the front of the building where my boss was helping take orders because we were short-staffed that day, as usual. I only know she came to the front because her kids were screaming like they'd been stabbed or something. They were back behind the counter stealing our collective cups and taking things from the ice box, which is just a fridge we put our jars and other things in. I took everything they took and put it back and had to throw the cups away because now they're unsanitary from them shoving their gross kid hands in the cup. When I tell you this woman is a bad parent, I mean she watched her kids run around our restaurant, sit in other booths, spit in their faces, etc. Like, what the F, man? I told her to get control of her kids or get out because if you can't teach your kids some manners outside your house, then you need to keep them home. She asked for a box and left. Edit, she left her car door open the whole time. I hope something got stolen. LOL.
I just love this story because you worked for a restaurant called Slim Chickens. I love a little bit of wordplay, and that alone would make me want to eat at this restaurant. Sadly, I've never heard of it before, so I have to assume it does not exist around me in Minnesota. But that's amazing, and that sounds... I wish I could say that sounds like an unusual customer experience in a fast food restaurant, but it is not.
Story 13. The way I met my best friend was actually messed up, but while I was skateboarding, I saw cop cars and an ambulance going by the lake that was near the skate park that I went to. I went to check it out, and it was a whole crowd of kids gathered around the whole crap show. I went up to this one dude and asked if he knew what was going on, and it turns out that it was his crazy ex-girlfriend who tried to kill herself cause to guilt trip him for breaking up with him. Edit. By the way, the dude with the crazy girlfriend is my best friend. Story 14. I was in elementary school, and as most people do that age, we always went everywhere in a line. The students would line up to enter school or to be dismissed at the end of the day. Someone's parent was in the school, and we were lined up waiting for the end-of-day bell to ring, and the very second it rang, this woman screamed at the entire line of kids, "Move it, crackheads!" And I was like, lady, what the F? Chill. Story 15. I have a service dog in training, so he's not meant to be touched when he wears his vest. I once took him to a shopping center with my sisters. We first went to the dollar store, and he did pretty good. So I said to my sisters, let's go to another store next. As we're leaving to go to another store, a group consisting of a child on a bike, a mother, and maybe a grandmother starts following us out of the parking lot. They head in the same direction as us. I pull my dog over to the side and call my sister to me. The trio goes by making as much noise as possible and enters the second store. I wait a bit, then enter after them and see they're hanging around the front of the store, so my sisters and I head off to get lost in the aisles. We didn't buy anything. Shortly after, we head back to the dollar store, and sure enough, the three of them come out right behind us. They didn't buy anything either. They head back to the dollar store as well. So I have my sisters go ahead and get what we forgot, and I wait in the parking lot with my service dog in training. Story 16. I'm autistic, and loud sounds cause me physical pain. I definitely wondered, are you serious? Once, I was in the backseat of my parents' car while we were stopped at an intersection, and a few guys on their motorcycles were next to us blaring music. I covered my ears, and this grown man looked at me, grinned, and turned his music up louder. I wish I could tell him now that I wasn't just some bratty little kid who didn't like his hip-hop, I was an autistic girl in pain. But I don't even have faith he would care about that distinction.
You know, it's kind of sad because, I'm very sorry that you had to deal with that. That sucks. I have autistic people who are in my life, and I always try and be conscious of, things that are difficult for them. Everyone's got their own little things, autistic people, we try and be nice to them because we try and be nice to everyone else. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I could rant forever. But I always try and keep this in mind with anyone I'm engaging with, where if something that I'm doing seems to be getting to them, I don't know their life. I don't know what they might be dealing with, just like they might not know that I've, got ADHD or whatever, I guess the lesson is, people, we should all just try and be a little more understanding of people we don't know, because we don't know.
Story 17. Back a few years ago, I was up at night with my dad and noticed that the Cheerios he had stored away had a Snapchat scan on the side. I thought about how that really didn't fit because none of the main Cheerios fan base, old people and babies, were really using that app. Isn't Cheerios usually for kids? I said. Why, it's kids' cereal, so why can't I have any? My dad replied. Genuinely confused, I pointed it out and he was like, oh. He was always emotionally abusive, later on physically abusive, but I didn't think he was that stupid. I don't know what the hospital did to him, but he's never been the same. Story 18. When I was in 7th grade, I was bullied a lot. It wasn't too bad, but some people started physically trying to hit me. Both me and my parents believe you have every right to defend yourself in this situation, so I did. So after I had done that, me and my friend went to the cafeteria to get our lunch, but once we sat down, one of my friend's friends, who was more of a frenemy to me at the time, went up to me, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "You should apologize to them." Like, frickin', why should I apologize to the people who have not only bullied me for like 7 years straight, but who are physically hurting and intended to hurt me? For anyone wondering, no, I did not get in trouble with the school for retaliating. I don't think any adults really found out about it. Students definitely did, though. Needless to say, nobody really tried to pick a fight, though, just went back to verbally bullying. Also, for more context, plus a mini bonus story about the bee, she was born into a hardcore Christian family and was really mean to the friend I was with for being lesbian. I kind of cut ties with her after that day, the bee, not my friend. She constantly went on tangents about how wrong it was to be gay during our art period and how much God mattered. I'm not saying all Christians are like this, but geez Louise, if that wasn't so infuriating.
First off, to my fellow member of the Alphabet Mafia commenter, you have my full support. Happy to have you here. Also, yeah, I've made no secret about the fact that I am not a Christian. I'm an atheist. I used to be a very diehard Christian, though, for many, many years throughout high school and my early 20s. And I had quite a few Christian friends. But one thing that I never liked when I was a Christian is when people would be like this towards non-Christians. And as another Christian at the time, I talked to them and be like, why are you going up against them like that? Why are you, being their villain? And they're like, well, because what they're doing is wrong or whatever. And at the time, I didn't even like to believe that, being gay, bi, pan, whatever, I didn't believe that was wrong personally. but I just told him, I'm like, it doesn't matter if you think something's wrong or not. Your goal should be to save their soul. If you're a Christian, that should be what you're trying to do, is save someone's soul. And mocking them and telling them how awful they are and stuff is just a way to make enemies. It's a terribly un-Christian thing to do. I know someone who often dealt with non-Christians and treated them extremely nicely, and his name was Jesus Christ.
Story 19. I used to work at Jersey Mike's, and the exact same thing happened to me. A lady's card kept declining, and she kept saying, "I sure hope you aren't charging me more than once," to which I responded, "Ma'am, the receipt would have printed many times over if I'd charged you more than once." She kept getting more and more snippy every time her order didn't ring out. Luckily, we did get it working, but she was still convinced we'd rung her out multiple times. I think it's also important to mention that she had a family of like 5 with her and got mad at me when I accidentally said a wrong sandwich number back to her after they ordered. I was newish at the time and also had ADD, so I have trouble with short-term memory sometimes. Story 20. I had a teacher in middle school who wasn't the worst I had, but this moment was stupid of her. The year before, we had a different teacher teach us about space, and it was this lesson that taught us that the sun was a star. Don't judge, but I thought it was a planet before this. Anyway, the next year, another teacher was kind of teaching us about space. I think she just wanted to know what we learned from the last teacher, and I don't know who said it. It could have been me or one of my classmates, but we said the sun was a star. The teacher said that was wrong, and the sun was just too big to be a star. Everyone in my class argued with her, and I think she still believed it at the end of the class, but it was never brought up again. Story 21. I had a horrible time in high school. Well, all of school. I was always picked on, never invited to anything, and was bullied by everyone. It was the last day of school. I was so happy since I was never going to have to go to this high school ever again. Last day, a group of popular girls came up to me. They told me they always thought I would shoot up the school and were happy it was not going to happen. I was surprised, seeing as how there was a creepy kid. The other one showed up to school with a knife, telling the girl it was the knife he was going to stab her with. He always talked about guns and how easy it was to get one, loved sitting in the corner of classes just glaring at everyone. Yet these girls thought it was going to be me. If you thought I was going to shoot up the school, why were none of you nicer to me? They made no sense.
I will never get awful people like this because it's an awful thing to do or even insinuate about someone. It is telling them that you think that they're this kind of reprehensible person. But I guess, you turned out not to be. But what a gross thing to say. And I'm sure they did it in kind of a joking way, but you don't joke with someone about something like that. That's just cruel, and any person who would do that is just kind of a bad person who needs to get their crap together. That's not great. So I'm sorry that you had to deal with people like that, but it sounds like they suck, and you shouldn't care about their opinion because they suck.
Story 22. All right, I got a story to tell. So I'm at lunch talking with friends when one of my friends says, "I'm allergic to cheese." I'm like, "Why are you eating that pepperoni pizza then?" He says, "'Cause it doesn't have cheese on it." I said, "Dude, yes, it does." He says no, with his reason behind that being because pepperoni pizza does not have cheese in the name. It therefore has no cheese on it. Makes me question his sanity somehow. Story 23. A few years ago, I started dating a girl. I told her that I have a daughter and that it wouldn't affect anything, but I just wanted her to be aware. Her answer was, "I'm not going to date someone who has problems with an ex." That's a valid point, but I explained to her that it would change nothing. After a month of dating, she told me she was going to her ex's house on his birthday so she could be with the kids. His kids, not hers. I reminded her of what she told me about my daughter and how hypocritical she sounded at that moment. We dated for a week longer and I bailed. She could have gone to her ex's house without me knowing, so points extra to her, I guess. Story 24. I have a lot of these from my old job. I used to work as a busser for a restaurant. A busser is basically someone who cleans the table after guests are done eating and have paid and left the restaurant. At this job, the servers were asked to pre-bus, which is taking the bigger dishes and stuff out of the way. So many of these servers I worked with would not do this part, despite it being in their job contract. Anytime a manager asked, I'd end up hearing the same BS. It's in their job title to do it. All the servers, like 7, that did pre-bus would say, but it's in your contract to do it. Long story short, I hated busing because coworkers were lazy.
Hey folks, if you're at a job where you have like your duties and stuff like that, and, you're working with other employees in different departments or who have, different duties, stuff like that, just because something isn't your job, doesn't mean that you can't help out and be nice. Going the extra mile to help out your fellow worker, that's just being a good person. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you can't. You're busy. But do what you can, don't, even if you don't like the job, if it's a crappy job, it's still, there are other people you're working with, be friends, make friends, if you're nicer to those people, your time at that job is going to be better. So why wouldn't you make your life just a little bit nicer and happier?
Story 25. Oh ho ho! This story just happened today, and honestly, how can this bush be serious? So my brother had the flu a week ago, and now I have the flu. My mom doesn't think it's because my brother, but whatever. Now it sucks, but unlike my brother's flu, I threw up. When I came back from urgent care, he asked me how I was feeling, and when my mom told him I threw up twice, he started acting like, no, get away from me. Also calling me inconsiderate for going downstairs when he had lived on the couch for an entire week in the living room, bound to get someone sick and not caring about it. Also, not wearing a mask. Story 26. I was at Home Depot with my family getting something for our little garden out back. This random lady was calling out to a staff member to help her with something, but no staff member was around. She was talking to me. Keynote was wearing a bright orange hoodie on that day, but I was only 13 years old at the time. I thought because of how young I looked that she would understand that I was not someone who worked there. However, the lady walked up to me and grabbed my upper arm, dragged me to a manager, and told the manager that I should be fired for not helping her, acting like a spoiled brat kid not getting their way. My mom, who wasn't that far away from me, saw what this lady did and smacked her and told her I was a 13-year-old kid here, not an employee. Her face was in shock and left, saying some stupid crap under her breath, probably cursing my mom out. Meanwhile, I was just there dumbfounded about this lady's actions. Again, at the time, I was 13 and the lady looked like she was in her late 60s.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.